Welcome to the channel, guys. I know it's been a while since I last posted a review or anything like that, but it's been quite hectic with other things in my life at the moment, so sorry about that. But however, I want to share something interesting with you. Welcome to my review of the S8. No, actually, yeah, S9 Plus. So stay tuned, I'll tell you more stuff about this smartphone. Now, in case you're wondering why I said S8 and whether it was a mistake, it actually wasn't a mistake, because when you're going to look at the S8 and the S9, from the front at the very least, they look virtually identical. It's the same screen, the same 6.2 inch, 18:9 aspect ratio, no buttons. The bezel's a little bit thinner, the same 8 megapixel camera at the front, but when you flip it around to the back, however, that's where things have changed a little bit. But before we get on to that bit, I want to actually just share some of the things that I still don't like about this handset, because actually I really like it. What I don't like, I still think that the wraparound glass at the front and from the back still makes it for a sharp edge for the handling of the handset. It doesn't feel quite as nice and comfortable, especially with the edge. I still don't like the designated Bixby button on the left hand side. It's pointless. I keep finding myself pressing it by accident and getting frustrated, so I still don't like that. Being an iPhone user, I don't see much point having a headphone jack at the bottom, but for those of you that still have old-fashioned headphones, that'll be great. Get some Bluetooth ones, okay? Come on. Other than that, that's as much as I'd say is bad. No, one more thing. Battery life is not quite as good as the previous one from last year, with a 3,500 mAh battery. You'd expect to get slightly more, but to be fair with you, for me, it was perfectly fine. Over a day of usage of a smartphone, so what do you expect? So let's crack on to the good things that I found that Samsung have actually done that is worth noting. So the good thing about what they've done this time around, they actually listened to the customer. Everyone last year complained about the positioning of the fingerprint scanner. Now this time they've rearranged it a little bit so it's a little bit more reachable, feels a lot nicer to reach. The security of the device, which I think is perfect. They've now got Knox security on it, which is great. Secures your stuff on your phone a lot better. They've also done something else which is quite nice, dual speakers. The earpiece at the top doubles up as a speaker as well as the bottom speaker, because Samsung audio, it was terrible before. Still not great, but it's a lot better. So let's go straight into why people would be buying this over last year's one. And that's the cameras, of course. Everyone is out there trying to give you something new. Dual lenses, intelligent scannings, all of this smart AI to try and give you better photos. Samsung have gone down the route of conventional photography, if you ask me, which is good. 2 lenses, both of them 12 megapixel. One is a telephoto, which equates to about 2 times zoom, and that is 2.4 aperture. And then you have the standard one, which is a wide field of view, and that is variable. Variable in the sense of you can go from 2.4 or 1.5 aperture. Now that's great. Of course, 2.4 is the standard one for during the day. That'll give you a slightly sharper picture. And of course, the 1.5 is predominantly for nighttime photography, because having a wider aperture means you're actually letting in a lot more light. You can still use it, of course, during the day. What I found on my photos is that it tends to make the edges a little bit soft, so I don't tend to use it. I'm going to put a couple of screenshots up on the screen here. there's been a big push by all manufacturers to give you a phone that can shoot slow motion. We've had 120 back in the day when iPhone first introduced slow motion. Then we have 240 frames. That was swiftly followed by GoPros, but guess what? Someone else actually beat Samsung to the punch on this one, and that was of course Sony with the Xperia Premium handsets. But that kind of didn't really make a splash, so Samsung is giving it a go themselves, and they're doing super slow mo, which is 960 frames per second on a smartphone. That's mind-boggling. And yes, you'll be able to do all of that that windswept slow motion stuff. I won't because I ain't got any hair, however, but you'll be able to. But remember, the resolution on it is going to be pretty low, just about high definition at 720 pixels. So up to you what you do with it. I personally think it's just a little bit of a gimmick and you probably won't use it that often. It's nice to have, I suppose. Since we touched on performance, of course, I'm going to splash on the screen some specs, as you can see, and nice beautiful shots of the handset so you can get some close-ups. But basically it's the run-of-the-mill for an Android. Snapdragon 845, 6 gig of RAM, expandable memory. This particular model is 128 internal storage, but you can expand it to 400 gig with an SD card. The SD tray can accommodate 2 SIM cards as well, which is quite smart. I like that idea. I'm surprised we haven't moved on to eSIM yet, which is shocking. Of course, the battery, as I mentioned before, is 3,500 mAh, which is great. Fast charging, IP68, waterproofing. What else is there to say? It's got all the credentials you need a smartphone to have. But as you saw from my Note 8, that didn't really matter to me so much. I tell you what did matter. I'm going to point a few things that most people will not say to you. It's all about experience, and this is why I think this phone is so much better than last year, so much better than the Note 8. Because first of all, when you're setting the handset up, Samsung has now given you an option of Samsung specific apps that you may not want to install, which I straight away said no. I don't want any of the Samsung duplication of what Android already has. So you say no, so you don't install that stuff. Another thing that I was always worried about Samsung, or any Android for that matter, was security. Now you have Knox security that protects your device, protects your data. I found that the actual experience of using Android as a interaction, where I mentioned on the Note 8, link up on the left hand side in case you haven't watched it, do go and watch it, I go into depth with that as well, is when I move the screen and I press on the screen or tap on the screen to stop that scrolling, there's a hesitation before it stops. Well, there's still some on this a little bit, but it's not as bad, and it just feels a lot more snappy. Not once have I used it and I felt like the phone stuttered or lagged. They've introduced a lot of things on the interface where when you're on the camera itself and you swipe left and right, it changes the camera modes. I don't like AR emoji. I think it's gimmicky and actually makes me look just the same as any other person that's scanned. Male and females are somehow they look the same. It's nonsense. A lot of all that stuff I didn't really like. Really liked the fact that we have dual speakers. That was such a thing that I thought myself Samsung really messed it up all the time. But there's one thing that Samsung isn't shouting, and I think they should be, and that's DeX. DeX, basically, if you don't know what it is Samsung's equivalent of, if you look back on Windows had something called Continuum, where basically you would have a trimmed down version of Windows 10 from your phone as soon as you connect it to an external monitor. Well, DeX does exactly the same. It doesn't come with the phone without an additional peripheral, which is a DeX dock. But if you buy that, you can in theory make your smartphone into a desktop. Which is why I don't understand why people, or manufacturers in this case, are not really pushing something for that. For a lot of people out there, this is their one and only computing device. So why not make it into something you can connect to your external screen, your monitor, your TV, your smart TV, and attach a Bluetooth mouse and keyboard and use it as your main computing device. We have the power. We have the power to run stuff like that, and Samsung is doing this, and they're not even shouting about it. So to wrap it up, really, it's a thumbs up, and more than glad to change it as my daily driver or my permanent phone as opposed to my iPhone. I never thought I'd say that, but that is pretty much there.